podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
This week on the SRC podcast, the final regular season round of fixtures is complete. We have one last drub in. Tables turning everywhere. Tune in to find out more. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the SRC podcast. Joining me, Big M, as always, the one and only Double R, Mr. Rob Reese. Good evening, my friend. How are we?
Yeah, all good. But it's we can officially say we're back into knockout rugby.
Knockout rugby, the big time is here. It's playoff time, but not just yet. We still have the final.
Yes. We're going to skip over the
regular
final round of results, Martin.
Oh, only because you're not happy. Oh, is he gonna shed a tear? Oh, poor
Fixed.
baby.
That's what it is. It's fixed,
Poor
Martin.
baby. Oh, sad boy. But we leave that to last because obviously there's a lot of enjoyment to come from that game. As we know, we'll build the hype, as they say. So, as we like to do, we will start with the televised game on Thursday night, and it was a Gwent derby, not involving Ebbw Vale. Can't even speak tonight. So we had Newport at home to a fairly resurgent Pontypool, if we can take their win over Llandovery as anything to go by. And it turns out we can read a little bit into that result because, I mean, by all accounts, this should have been a Pontypool win.
Yeah, they'll be kicking themselves that they didn't walk away with a shield, to be honest. The scoreline only 2 points in it, 31-29 at full time. But Pontypool have just upped their game again. They've got that physicality back, starting to work as a team, were playing to their strengths, a lot of deep kicks, playing the pace out wide. Interestingly, the midfield was where it was hurting them and where they were making lots of gains as well. A lot of clean breaks made by them, but equally Newport were carving them up in midfield as well. So it turned into one of those back and forth games, and I just felt that the turning point was red zone defence in the second half, because Pontypool have two entries where they clean through a clean break, they're inside Newport's 5 metre line, and they can't get a recycled ball out and get turned over twice. Both occasions should have yielded a try. And if just one of those goes in, I had to fancy the momentum was swinging back with Pontypool, but they just couldn't quite wrestle it back, and Newport get to keep the shield over the summer.
Yeah, I mean, how great would that have been if the team finished in the league in 10th position, bottom of the lot, gets to spend the summer with the shield? That would have been absolutely amazing. And I was here for it. I really was. It was unfortunate it wasn't quite to be, It was a really good contest, 17-12 in Pontypool's favour going into the half. But like you said, they just couldn't convert what they needed to in the end. And as we spoke about in recent weeks, those conversions, you got to nail those kicks. 6 points gone missing for Pontypool, obviously 4 points missing for Newport as well. But, one conversion was the difference. It really was. And, I think we already knew that Pontypool were going to be at rock bottom, come the end of this round. But there was always that chance that they could have got over Bridgend, but it just wasn't to be on this occasion. And as you've just said, Pontypool do finish bottom, 10th with 4 wins from their 18 games, and Newport, after what was a disgusting start, won 11 of the last 13 to finish a very comfortable third, which, if we go back even just a couple of months, it just didn't seem plausible at all. So over to the team Pontypool did shock last week. Llandovery headed to the Talbot Athletic Ground to take on Aberavon. And I think it's fair to say that everyone's sort of picking up now, because Aberavon put up one hell of a fight in this game. Llandovery, they came out to the blocks really quick. Tommy Lewis and Aaron Warren crossed fairly fast. They got themselves a decent lead, but Aberafan, they stuck in there. Scott Whitlock got a double from Frankie Jones. It was 26-17 at half time, and for all money, Aberafan were looking to be on top at that point. But as we do tend to find with Llandovery, when they do have Lee Rees and Johan Hughes in that halfback 9-10 combination, they just have that little bit too much. And a further 3 tries in the second half, unanswered, kind of did the job for them. 47-17. I mean, they're still going to be hurting by that Pontypool loss. I know they probably still scratching their heads what happened in that second half. But, in terms of going into the playoffs, they've put themselves in a good position. And Aberafan, well, they're not winning, but they're putting in performances. And this wildcard round, it can be a bit of a slingshot.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Llandovery needed a bounce back more than Aberafan. The positional they needed to make sure that Swansea didn't catch them for that 4th spot. Just round that off, make sure that a win in the quarterfinals takes you to a home semi-final. Sorry, a home quarterfinal to give you that opportunity, rather than having to go away. And like you said, everyone's picking their game up. Llandovery have put their foot on the gas that second half with their full team out there. But Aberafan this last couple of weeks, got a win away to Quins, a very respectable performance, especially 40 minutes. And I feel for them it was probably more around the performance than the fixtures, because yes, they were fighting for that home ground advantage in the wild card, which you have got. They pipped Bridgend by a couple of points, so that's key for them now. They've got a win coming into it last week. They've got a good performance this week against Aberafan. They've beaten Pontypool, so yeah, I think Aberafan are a team on the up, very similar to Pontypool in these last few rounds, and it makes the wild cards interesting because these sides have got momentum, especially Aberafan are going to be at home, obviously, and that makes it tricky then for the quarterfinals because there's so many teams are struggling for form further up the table, or you're struggling to judge their form, and yeah, I think Aberafan are in a good place.
Yeah, it's not often you get to say that coming off a loss, but here we are. So Aberafan finishing in that golden 8th position for that home wildcard tie. 6 wins from their 18 games, and Llandovery, another vital position, 4th in the table, 11 wins from their 18. They will get the home quarterfinal, as you already alluded to. On to our next game, and our one and only blowout this week up north, where RGC hosted Bridgend. And I mean, we've been saying this all season, for 40 minutes, everyone is going hammer and tongs against each other. And it was exactly the same in this game, 19-14 in RGC's favour at half time. But RGC do what RGC do up in Colwyn Bay. The second half blew, and they just threw hell to leather and went for it. And there's just nothing Bridgend could answer with. Was it 38 points to nil in that second half? I mean, it is a worry for Bridgend, and they probably are the only team of the 9 that haven't got some sort of positive to cling on to going into these playoffs. The defense is just, I don't want to say non-existent because I think that's disrespectful, but it's just not clicking in the right places. And getting beaten by RGC, and RGC isn't oh, it's not taboo. It's not like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened to you, how poor you are. But till there was it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 tries go past you. You're scratching your head. You're going, how does that happen?
Yeah, and this is perspective, right? At half time in this game and the Aberafan game, Aberafan, getting a point out of that game, and Bridgend again a point here. The game's both in the balance. And Bridgend are going, we can overtake Aberafan here. We come up the second half. As you say, the conditions, RGC used to it, manage it, the fast track. And Bridgend have got a habit of doing this season at times, of just falling away. I mean, 40 minutes is a long time. Sometimes it's limited to 20 minutes, but they do have these spells where teams just rush away from them and the game goes. And ultimately, that's probably cost them too much this season. And this game's just gone out the window within the hour mark. And at that stage, then you're fighting for anything you can just to keep it as respectable as you can. You've lost the home advantage in the wild card, so they will travel to Aberafan. And yeah, this RGC again, another side who's all right mid-table rather than nearer the bottom, but in good form. Got their first ever league win against Ebervale last week. I've put in a really stonking performance the week before against Quins and this week. So they're another team building momentum at the right time. As much as I feel a week off is good, I don't know whether a side like RGC would have enjoyed a home wildcard game, keep that momentum going.
Yeah, but I mean, I do feel like as it stands right now, before these wildcard games, that last Llandovery RGC quarterfinal, that's looking the tastiest of the bunch at the minute.
Yeah.
And
that pitch suits RGC as well, right? I'm not saying it doesn't suit Llandovery, but it suits the game style that RGC want to play, so it makes it even more enthralling.
Yeah.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves, Martin. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
I know.
We're going to have to skip over the Quins game and start talking about... Yeah, that's right.
Aye. You keep saying that. So there we have it. Bridgend finish the season in 9th. The same amount of losses as Aberafan, but only the 4 wins. They did pick up 2 draws along the way. Finishing on 31 points. So, a penalty or conversion in either of those 2 draws.
Well, it was that Swansea game, wasn't it, where they conceded 2 tries in the last 5 minutes. The one deep in red zone. Right,
that was literally the difference between 9th and 8th at this point. But there we are, and RGC up there, the best of the rest, as we say, finishing in 5th with 8 wins and 10 losses. It's not bad for RGC. Fair play.
6th. 5th, yeah.
5th, yeah, 5th.
They've climbed the table nicely as well, and that shows the value of bonus points, right? They actually got 1 fewer win and 1 fewer draw than Swansea, who finished 2 points below them.
Yeah,
and that's a good caveat into Swansea, Martin.
It is a very, very good caveat into Swansea. So we had the 2 bigger cities going head to head.
Where Davids are playing.
I said biggest, not best. Where Cardiff travelled down, not to Swansea, but to Dunvant, because Pro Dacre has had a lot of rugby this season, courtesy of Swansea, and that has officially come to an end. For now, who knows what the future may hold?
Yeah, they could have a playoff game there. That'd be a hell of a lot of upsets. But
I mean, where are they? So what are they then? 6th.
They're 6th. So
one of the wild cards would have to make it through to the semi-finals. That's what side of the draw are they on? They're on Aberafan Bridgend side. So Aberafan or Bridgend beat Ebervale at Ebervale, which is beating Ebervale.
Yeah, not so look at them though. I'm new like, was it 4th and 5th? They're gonna fucking lose, aren't they?
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. It could be interesting.
Yes.
So back to the actual game itself, and yeah, this one it weren't a blowout, but it had the sort of feelings that it was over as a contest, sort of at half time. Cardiff, it wasn't a massive lead, 17 points, 24-7 at half, but they were in such control of this game. And, like you alluded to in previous weeks, with their head coach now being out for God knows how long, Joe Thomas, there are new centre combinations being used. And, I'm not putting everything down to that, but when you change your back line to unknowns, which is what we have seen, I think we've had Ian Bissell in there, who's in single figures for games for Swansea. The combinations are not quite where you're not gelling as much. And when you've got a side like Cardiff, that, let's be honest, they've been stuck together for years, even with an academy allocation coming through. These boys know each other through thick and thin and through everywhere. they've probably got a squad of about 45, 50 boys, including the academy, that can really interchange and nothing drop in terms of standards. But there we are. They've had a few upfront tries. Yoan Emmanuel and Alan Rees and then Alan Rees crossing for a double, and then in the backs with that man Dewi Cross again a try again, and Rees Cummins for a double. Fair play to Cardiff. They're well deserved for this win and just got that 6 points.
Yeah, this sort of felt like Cardiff were going to go all out. They needed a result elsewhere to finish top. You sort of felt they had to put that marker down early. And I'll be honest, I'm a bit disappointed how Swansea ended the season. A couple of 34-33 defeats to Ebbw and Bridgend. A heavier defeat here. It feels they've gone away from being a potential top 4 wild card. They're dropping right down. Yes, they were never going to drop lower than where they have finished in 6th, but they have finished there. And it just makes it a little bit more difficult now in terms of what they got to do. And as you say, it's those combinations. I feel that Swansea don't quite settle. Their Ospreys are in and out. They're either all in or they're all out. And again, you can see that in results and performances. But yeah, Cardiff, they're looking deadly, I'll be honest. I think they've like 2 weeks ago, we were saying them and Newport. Newport have not gone off the rails by any means, but they haven't been as convincing the last couple of weeks. Cardiff have just kept on going. It's going to be interesting now, a week off. I don't think bothers them too much. And this is where Cardiff becomes strong because there's such a big reliance on their academy and senior players dropping down that ultimately they can start stacking teams. They could have an interesting draw depending on how the wild card goes. I mean, they play the winner of Quins and Pontypool, so that's not an easy tie at all. But yeah, they'll be confident given that they said they finished top of the pile.
Yeah, and that was one hell of a jump up first. When we go back, before this final round of 4 games came through, what was it? Ebbw needed pittance really to secure with that first place. So for Cardiff to actually get over,
they'd be 9 points, I think, officially, because they've got a win against Swansea with a bonus point, and they needed 4 more points to seal it, and they never got the 4. They only got the 1 against Quins.
Yeah. So I mean, there is a bit of poetry in this. A pendant getting awarded for the leader of the table this season. Nothing for Cardiff last year, and then Cardiff go and do it in the last round when, let's be honest, it wasn't expected. So it is nice that the first winners of that league pennant does go to Cardiff. Who 79-77, it's not bad. So
moving on to the wild card round, Martin.
Moving on to the result of the season, the one that everyone's been talking about. Not
sorry.
Not the game from Thursday night. Not Llandovery's win, not the blowout in RGC, not Cardiff finishing first, but the game that had everything on the line and enabled such a table toppling turn. Carmarthen Quins at home to Ebbw Vale. And we have to start off by saying conditions were terrible. There's no way in or about this. It was absolutely disgusting at Carmarthen Park. And
it always is.
You'd think, shut up. You'd think that would suit Ebbw Vale. But on this occasion, it went back and forth. We didn't know where it was going. So a really dour first half with Evan Lloyd. Welcome back, by the way. An Evan Lloyd penalty being the only point on the scoreboard. 3-0 up Ebbw Vale. Then the second half comes. And it really is a chess battle. Ellis Price hitting a couple of penalties. Here we go, 6-3 Quins. Pumpy Morris for Ebbw Vale. Yeah, I'm over for that 19th try of the season. 19 tries in 18 regular games. I don't even think he played in all 18. So, more than a try a game for that man. Fair play. 8-6 at that point, Ebbw Vale. Ellis Price. No. Let's slot another penalty. Let's do it. 9-8, always a going next. Another penalty for that man, Ellis Price, on his return to secure a 12.8 win for Carmarthen Quins. And I'll be honest with you, I was following this on, socials as I do, because I never managed to travel the 7 hours down to watch a game. But the moment Morris crossed for that try and I saw that update come through, I was like, yeah, I don't think we're going to do it now. We're into the second half. 2026 has been a tale of second half blowouts for Quins. We've been leading games at half time. We've been doing well, and second halves have just unravelled for us. There's no ifs or buts about it. Second halves have been our enemy in 2026, but not today. Not when it mattered. Not when we stood up to the giant of Super Rugby Cymru, Ebu Vale. We slayed them down. The steel men, where they're basically nothing more than a bit of aluminium at this point. This is a huge result. Not just for the fact, obviously, we've knocked Ebu Vale off top spot and we've got those connotations there with obviously losing that final, which obviously is got to hurt. Obviously, there's that financial impact in there as well. But after the last few rounds, losing to Aberafan really weren't great. But to pick up and get a win like this, regardless of who was the start in 23 on either side, it does so much for confidence for a team. Now, you were on the other end of this. So, going for a team that basically had the first place wrapped up to now being in second, what's going on? Because I'm really scratching my head at how, even when you've got a rotated 23, I wouldn't expect you to be losing quite like this.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think the momentum was with Ebbw Vale. You look back to January, and that seems a long time ago, really, but you can see where it fell apart. Destroyed Llandovery, had a 3-week layoff, and then basically played the Cardiff fixture that was outstanding. Played really, really poorly. 4 weeks of the cup, two games didn't get played. They lost 3 starters in one game on a different ground. Didn't play a home game for over 3 months. Came back to the league. They've had 11 of their starting 15 unavailable. And they just look like a team that can't get used to each other. And the RGC game at home, that was exactly the same as this Quins game. The exits were so poor. So Ebbw Vale had the wind in the first half and just couldn't make use of it. It was the opposite in the RGC. You were kicking into the wind, but you've got to manage that. The 9-10 combo of Griff and Evan looked really rusty and just didn't really work. John Evans was superb when he came on, but they even rotated Evan Lloyd at 65 minutes. The scrum was under pressure, which we know that Quins are a good pack and a great scrum unit, but you wouldn't expect Ebbw Vale to be under pressure. 2 line-outs taken down on the 5-metre line, last play of the game, effectively. Third one goes down. They don't give the penalty try. It goes the other way to Quins, and that's the game. But it's when you've got a side that are really grasping for anything they can, the tactics are all wrong. At the moment, they just are. You can't play like this. You can't play with combinations that are not looking good. And the only bit of good news really is that they had a few players come back, like Griff Tuff, Adam Williams, Evan Lloyd, Morgan Richards, and that they're expecting a few more back now by the time the quarter-final rolls around. That's really the only bit of confidence you can take. Obviously, you'll have the home advantage and the crowd will get behind them. It'll help. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I think, as you say, it's also an interesting battle going forward because I personally think second gets an easier quarter-final, potentially, unless Pontypool and Quins, I don't think it's an easier tie. I think Aberafan and Bridgend are both easier than those, personally. But basically, you could have a situation where first plays 7th, which is likely, and second plays 8th. Oh, and you know what I mean? So it's second place gets the easier tie. That doesn't mean that they fall into the Newport side of the draw. Again, that's really interesting to sort of narrative, because that does mean that you've got a potential Gwent derby around earlier. And Newport obviously know how to win a big playoff game at Eugene Cross based off the final from last year. But yeah, it's difficult for them at the moment. Like you said, Quins on the other hand are looking a lot more confident.
Yeah. So that does wrap up the league nicely, with Ebbw Vale finishing second, 13 wins from their 18, the 2 points behind Cardiff. That does hurt. Like looking at that, it hurts. And then Quins finishing in seventh again. That hurts, knowing where we were just a few weeks ago. 9 wins, a draw, and on 49 points. And it's a slightly different makeup to the table this year. It seems that we've got a few mini factions in there. We've got the top two, we've got third and fourth, we've then got fifth, sixth, and seventh, and then we've got the bottom three. So there's a nice few pockets in there of teams challenging around them. No one is sort of in there on their own, like Pontypool were last season. They were fifth with no one pushing them or fighting against them. So it's great advert, great for the league to have that teams in and around each other and actually pushing on. Pontypool picked up form a round earlier. Who knows what that might have told? So, we're not really halfway stage, but finish with a round of action. So, like, share, subscribe, do your thing. And now we come in to the post season. There is the playoffs, and it is almighty vital that you win every single game, because it's one and done here. One loss, and that's it. You're out. End of story. And let's have a little look at the brackets first. So we've got the top half. We've got Cardiff, who are top seeds. They will face the winner of Carmarthen Quins and Pontypool. And then they have Llandovery at home to RGC in the other quarter final. Money would be on a Cardiff Llandovery semi final there.
It would, but that's such a tough bracket, right? Like every team there is either a good team, a great team, or a very good informed team. There's no one there that I would say is struggling, easy to discount.
Like, I'm looking at this, and I would have been happy, with Quins facing anyone in that bottom three if you'd spoken to me after round 16. But seeing Pontypool this last 2 weeks, that 10th place doesn't suit the team that we've seen in these two fixtures. Not against Llandovery, not against Newport. So, that's hard going. It really is hard going. Into the bottom half, we have got Ebbw Vale, who will host the winner of Aberavon and Bridgend, our Thursday night game. And then facing them in the winner of that in the semi-finals will be Newport against Swansea. And I think a little bit more money would go on that Gwent derby you alluded to, Ebbw Vale against Newport in the semi-final. And yeah, it does look a little more straightforward here in this half.
Yeah, I think that's just it, right? We've said Swansea are right out of form, don't look particularly dangerous. Then the next minute they are, but I don't think that's the team that beats Newport. Aberystwyth are in good form, but travelling, but assuming they would win the wild cards, travelling then they start to struggle with, and Bridgend look probably the worst of the league at the moment. So it's a very interesting combination, right? And that's why I think this Aberavon Bridgend game is going to be very tasty on TV.
It is, because we just don't, like, obviously we're probably both back in Aberavon at this point, and we will get onto it in a little bit more detail if we can, depending on if there's team news, because I don't think there is as it stands. You're starting to go in Swansea. They've done the double over Newport, but it was in that early season 5-game loss. And I'm starting to really question, even though he isn't the club captain, but how important is Joe Thomas to Swansea? That's a question that's now been burning in my head for the last few rounds. But
He's Mr. Consistent, right? That's the thing. But I guess they got some time to work on it. That's the only good thing for Swansea.
yeah. And Newport, on the other hand, have got some time to dwell on what happened against Pontypool. And that is not always a good thing. Even though it was a win, it wasn't exactly an overpowering win, as we all know. So let's get down to it. Let's have a look at our wild card rounds. And only the two of them, of course. So we will have a quick walk down to Carmarthen Park to see them face a resurgent Pontypool, which is nice to see in the league, but not nice for me right now. But I'm privy to a bit of a squad update.
Ooh, sounds like a pod exclusive, Martin.
It's a podcast exclusive. I'm not going to put it out there, for the whole world to see on socials, etc., like we've done before. But I know a certain person that captained the team last Saturday, Lee Taylor, isn't available this week. And I'm not going to criticize the guy because, honestly, I wouldn't have expected to be playing this week either. It's just one of them that a few ugly games have ended up knocking us into 7th. And obviously, another issue from that Ebbw Vale game is Rhys Fawcett has a concussion. So he's not going to be available for this one. Other good news, though, we do have a couple long-term injured players coming back. We've got Yori Badam and Isaac Young, both Scarlets, both very good players coming back into it, which will be absolutely great. Probably, I would imagine Yori's not going to get a full game. In knowing what the Scarlets are like, they'll probably limit him to either a bench or a half game, something like that. And imagine Isaac will be on the bench because Lewis Morgan's been outstanding. But it's great to actually have that option on the bench. That second hooker. Jake Bowen has done a terrific job these last few weeks. But I think it's his first year senior rugby. He hasn't been playing a lot of SRC, so it's a tough job. It really is. And there is another injury I'm not really happy about because he's only just come back into playing. But Ellis Price has got a bit of a dodgy wrist, so he's not
dodgy foot as well. But the fucking look at his kicking.
Well, it was good enough to put Ebbw Vale to the sword. So don't think you should be complaining too much about a Marseille.
He's fucking worried, yeah, guys. He's fucking worried.
I'm not worried because if, like the last time, we didn't have. Well, I say last time, it was only recent weeks. Ellis Price and Carwyn Leggett-Jones weren't available for us. We managed to get a friendly face over from Llandefry via Aberystwyth, and that is Steph Jack Jones, who did put in a great 40 minutes against Swansea. So I'm very much hoping we're going to get this boy back and have an actual 10 to play the game. But honestly, mate, I am concerned. I am a wee bit worried that Pontypool's form is going to come up and it's going to cause a problem. Now, yeah, take over for me because I'm. Yeah. My doubt is piling in here.
I think the problem with losing players like Fawcett and Taylor is Pontypool are playing the best up front now. They got a very quick back three, but the game is formed around hard carrying off the likes of Morgan Allen, Scott Matthews, and a set piece that is massively improved. I think it massively relies on Dragons at the moment. Obviously, they had 3 against Newport in the front row. Dylan KG and Sam Scarf have been regulars for the past month or so. Yendel's come in just for this game, effectively. But I think if you put that against Carmarthen Quins, all of a sudden that's a different prospect. If you lose a couple of those, Quins are more favourable. I do think based off the form and then the injuries on top, Pontypool steal this one for me. But it is close. I can feel this coming down to how well Quins manage their forward prowess. I think they're going to lose the forward battle, but Pontypool will be channeling a lot down the middle. I think if you have the likes of Gay McDonald, etc., and people like Yori Badham back, we'll come to in a minute as well, is huge because if they're kicking over the top, putting pressure on that sort of rotating back three, you've got to have either a lot of magic with players like Yori Badham, or you've got to be able to combat it with some big deep kicking. And that worries me that Quins don't have that rounded game plan to just keep these out. So yes, Pontypool for me.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of X factor in that Quinn's back line. Like, you know, I'm hearing that Yohan Jones will be dropping down for this one. You know, he was earlier in the season, but you know, he's had some game time with the Scarlets. Obviously, Badham being back, you know, Gay McDonald. We saw the power that boy is now generating is properly causing teams problems, which, you know, it's great to see from an all-round view of the game. Thomas Lewis is a Quinn's product who's literally he's taken his first opportunity that was given and he's just gone for it, and he's being retained for these games. So he's doing something definitely right. And like we saw in that one game with Steph Jack Jones, he's got magic. He can create something out of nothing. So in a very, very unusual twist, I am really putting a lot of money on the Quinn's backline, pulling someone out of the bag in this game. And with the way the Pontypool have leaked tries this season, and that hasn't quite ended yet. They leaked quite a few against Llandovery, 5 again against Newport. They do have defensive frailties, so get that backline clicking. And I do think Carmarthen will just about squeak this. But like you said, it's all going to come down to what teams will play on the day, and that is something we don't know quite yet. So the only thing left to discuss about this game is who has the man that may be back next week. Who knows? Bucky Harris. Where's his money gone?
To quote John Bucky Harris, fuck Carmarthen Quins, Pontypool are going to tank him. Is a quote. Is a quote, guys.
It's a quote that he's just wrote on ChatGPT. 100%. 100%. Okay, so we're now on to the televised game. That is Aberavon versus Bridgend at Talbot Athletic Ground. And do we have any team news? Fuck, do we? Absolutely terrible. That less than 22 hours now we are. We've gone 9 o'clock on the Wednesday. Less than 22 hours of the game, and we have no team news. This is something that I would very much like the SRC to sort out. You got to make your 23s public at least.
Bridgend have announced it.
Yay!
Here we go.
Here we go. We got something. Thank you, Bridgend. I take back my whatever I was just saying about you.
Yeah.
You're good now. Scotty Baldwin, we like you again. Just you know what? Just for that, you can go through to the quarters. How about that? Does that feel good? That feels good now.
This prediction locked in, everybody. He's locked in.
Locked in. So who've we got, my friend? Who've we got? I'm
actually good. Harry Olding, Corey Lewis, who I rate very highly at hooker. Nathan Evans, big front row that. Nice. Evan Hill, Barnaby Waddle in the Boiler House. Alfie Thomas, Thomas Jevons, and Captain Zach O'Driscoll to make out the pack. Chris Williams, Ben Bennell, 9 and 10. Macaulay Rowley, Cam Ellis on the wings. Ryan Wilkins starts with Tom Florence in midfield. Ooh. And Ed Howley at fullback.
There's a lot to like in our centre partnership, but how gelled are they?
Yeah, exactly. I do like the pack. I think it's quite a mobile pack as well. I think people like Olding, Corey Lewis, Evan Hill, they're quite big carriers. Not a static pack by any means.
Alfie Thomas has gone through a lot of games this season, so he's more than proven his worth here as well. But Captain Zach O'Driscoll is That's a big one because he hasn't been there for a lot of this season.
Oh. It's the bench I worry about. I'll be honest.
Here we go.
Manasatava at hooker. Dom
He did
Manasatava.
he did score this week. Young
Yeah.
Dominic, he did get over the try line.
Alex George.
Yeah, not bad.
Donahue Proud. Blues allocation. Kyle Harris. Morgan Bubia. Dan Roderick. Lloyd Wilkins and Fraser Jones. And I'd be honest,
Ooh.
whilst they're not unfamiliar names, I'm not looking at that bench going, that is an impact bench. I'll be honest. I
Yeah,
also worry about the lack of gate
cover.
players in the backs. If people are going off, I worry that there's a lack of magic. Now, don't get me wrong. Yeah.
Like I'm struggling to see where the cover is. Like I know Fraser can play 12,
You can play
but
12, 15 and that, but it's not
he's not.
ideal.
It's not his bread and butter. Like, and we have seen. Well, I mean, Chippy is probably a better option on the bench, but obviously Dan Roderick. Obviously, he played a lot last season with RGC, but he hasn't. I haven't seen his name a massive amount this season. But it's oof. Who are we missing? Who are we missing? Who's
Harvey Nash is missing for the
Nash?
stats.
Who's the other 10 that's missing? I can't put my bloody finger on. Price?
Yeah,
Luke
Luke Price.
Price. Yeah.
I think this is the interesting thing with Bridgen. They rotated like that quite a bit this season. And it is interesting. I mean, don't get me wrong, maybe I'm being a bit harsh. Morgan Bubia won man of the match in that last game. But I mean, it's interesting. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 changes to the back line. And Ed Howley position move. Then there's
The whole back line's changed.
The whole back line change. Zach
Howley's
O'Driscoll stays at 7. Alfie Thomas a positional move. Everybody else in the pack changes.
This is a new side.
That's what I mean. Is don't get me wrong. I know you got to give a reaction, but it does go back to it. Even if you go back to the Swansea result again, this is more in line with the Swansea win in terms of the side.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Lloyd Wilkins was at 10, Harvey Nash 9, and Gethin O'Callaghan at 12, but otherwise pretty much the same. Front row, second row, the same, and Kyle Harris just swaps with Zach O'Driscoll.
Yeah, so there's literally it does make that RGC game dissipate a little bit. Looking at it and if Bridgen didn't announce their squad, we wouldn't have had this little discussion here. So that's the value of actually naming your squad in time, Abravan. Pause as I'm giving you daggers.
Oh man, you might upset the media team then again.
Like, what do you mean again? It was you last time, you cheeky fucker.
I don't give a fuck. If they're soft cunts who don't fucking want to listen to our podcast, they can go fuck themselves.
Wait, you definitely sound a bit like Billy Butcher in what you're saying, but there, mate. I gotta be honest. But no, yeah. I mean, yeah, the core of this team played in that Swansea game, so that's probably more in line to actually talk about. But yeah,
it's an interesting one because, as you say, that's the context, right? That you miss. You might think, oh, Bridgen shit last week, whatever, but the side completely changes basically. But
I mean, you got to think they knew in advance that they were going into wildcard round.
Yeah.
So they've obviously done this for a reason.
Yeah. I think this is interesting, right? We know the Bridgen squad. Sometimes an unknown helps with a prediction, sometimes it doesn't. But I still feel that Abravan have probably got a bit more cohesion in the squad and probably a little more up front. I don't know. I just think that playing out the tag boosts them.
I think a big one is going to be for Abravan is who plays at 10, because we haven't seen Cullen this month, and obviously he's been their go-to guy all season.
Yes,
we had Sam Jardine fit in against Quins, which obviously was a good result, and we've had Tommy Booth play against Llandovery, but there was quite a few changes. All from the 23 from the week before, but quite a few changes in this Llandovery fixture, and just I don't know. I see what Bridgend have done now, and it's got my head twicking a little bit, and I can see that Aberafan have probably given the likes of Freddie Chapman, Sol Hurley, Ashton Evans maybe a week off before this, which
Yeah,
understandable, but you're like, ooh,
that's
it's
what I mean. They're still playing okay with a bit of rotation, and when you have players like that to come back in, bit of confidence because everybody knows on the dressing room, you know who your best players are. Doesn't matter who you are, their best player up front has probably been Ashton Evans the last
oh yeah,
3, 4 seasons. Absolutely outstanding, a game changer when they were getting drubbed at the start of the season and struggling. There was one shining light, and it was Ashton Evans. So sometimes just having players like that back can really boost you. And I'll be honest, yeah, that's why I'm going Aberafan in this one. And is John. Go on,
yeah.
Mark. Is it a clean sweep, my son?
It's gonna be a clean sweep, and I'm just thinking now because you know they put Pontypool to the sword, 38-14 just 3 weeks ago. So it's a hard one, but yes, we do have a clean sweep of Aberafan winners, even without the 23 available. And 45 minutes, give or take, short, short, and sweep.
Bosh.
Nice one. Nice one. So thank everybody for listening and tuning in. It's been an amazing season. We got a few more weeks left to go yet, but things are building nicely. So Rob, as always, thank you very much for joining me.
Pleasure's all yours.
Pleasure, if you can call it a pleasure. It's getting to this point now, where we were 24 months from the start of this, and yeah, it's getting harder by the day. Honestly, people, you listen, you understand, you know how I'm feeling. I'm only joking, mate. Love you to bits, and get into the quarterfinals next week. But until then, goodbye for now, and super.
Super.